Donald Trump is set to meet Vladimir Putin for a peace summit in Alaska on Friday. This is dominating the news in the UK, not least his gaffe mistakenly saying Alaska is in Russia. Is Washington as excited about this as we are, or is it just sort of Trump business as normal?
Well, Washington is actually being roiled, as they say over here, by other matters because of President Trump's press conference yesterday announcing basically a federal takeover of law and order in the district. So Washington itself is preoccupied with other matters, that is the locals. But the politicos, yes, are just as worked up, I think, as the rest of the world about this forthcoming summit in Alaska. It's not very often you get these big meetings face to face between the leaders of the United States and Russia. Yeah. And so it is being eagerly, well, perhaps eagerly, but also very closely followed because we just don't know how it's going to turn out. And Trump gave a few pointers yesterday at his Washington, D.C. security press conference about how the Ukraine meeting is going to go. But he really left the door open for all sorts of different outcomes, saying, well, I'll make a judgment within 2 minutes of the end of the meeting, whether it was a good meeting or a bad meeting. And then we'll either have a deal or I'll walk away and say, thank you very much. Please get on with your war. So he's pretty much left his options open.
Well, it's nicely keeps it exciting. Look, how much do we know about how it's all going to work, the technicalities of it, exactly where they're going to be, who's going to be with them, and so on?
Well, we expect it to be at a large and secure premises in Alaska, which narrows it down significantly, perhaps to one particular military base that's there. I can't say too much at this stage because it is still being organised behind the scenes, but it does seem obviously that the Russians are content to go to an American military base by the sound of it, which is intriguing. You might say daring in a way, but Trump seems to be pleased that it's taking place in Alaska. It may be behind the scenes that there is a suggestion of a return summit. If it goes well, perhaps we could see Trump visiting Russia in return, providing the outcome is positive in his view.
Yeah, sure. And look, that's other story you talked about, Donald Trump's decision to send the National Guard into Washington, D.C. Let's hear him talking about that.
Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Yeah, that's Donald Trump talking about what he calls what's got to be. They've got to deal with the violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals who have taken over Washington, D.C. David, is everything all right over there? Are you all quite safe?
It doesn't feel quite that bad on the ground, I have to say. The figures suggest that there's been a drop in violent crime in Washington, D.C., a big drop, actually, since 2023, down 26%. That was really a peak. There is an elevated level of crime, though, generally speaking, and you do hear about incidents quite often of people being robbed at gunpoint or carjackings going on. So it does have a crime problem, but it's not actually even in the top 20 most dangerous cities in the United States, according to the latest list that I've seen. That's actually topped by Memphis, Tennessee, believe it or not. But then again, at Trump's press conference, he did suggest that he will go, that this will go further, to use his own words, and he named cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia. So it's really Trump flexing his muscles and getting headlines for being the tough law and order guy that he wants to appear, I think. And of course, it's not the first time he's done something like this, because he did send National Guard over to Los Angeles, didn't he, earlier in his presidency? Although that, again, was met with a lot of mystification, because it was just to sort of police a rather small and not that violent demonstration. So perhaps there are ulterior motives for doing it. A lot of them have been floated, not least, once again, the claims of a distraction from his other problems. And we come back to the famous Jeffrey Epstein case and the fact that all these files have still not been released by his administration. So plenty of, as I say, this really is perhaps more than Ukraine, the thing that's being discussed and vexing the people of Washington, D.C. at the moment.
Is there any pushback on this from his own side? Because it does look a bit kind of authoritarian-ish.
I haven't seen any yet, but bear in mind that Congress is out of town for the summer break. And in order to do this for longer than, I think, 30 days, he would need to go to Congress to get approval to deploy the National Guard and to take over under the District's Home Rule Act. He would need to get congressional approval to take it longer than say September. And I think there might be some unease, and he doesn't need to. He can't afford to lose many votes, because the majorities in Congress are so slim. I don't think it's something that he will necessarily test. I think he wants it to be a big flashbang intervention right now to take the headlines for a few weeks.
Well, look, finally, and maybe this is one of those things that he wants the headlines to be taken away from, there's another executive order, this time delaying sweeping tariffs on China for yet another 90 days. He keeps doing this. Is it beginning to make him look a bit weak, David?
Well, weak or pragmatic, take your pick, really, because he doesn't, you rightly say, he doesn't need this. I think markets are very delicately poised. And I think what they sense in the Treasury and the White House is that if they have a big falling out with China and it results in another arms race on the tariff rate, which, bear in mind, he put up to 145% at one point during this showdown, then it could tank the markets, because we're getting, as you know, various indicators that all is not well with the American economy, hence the firing of the person in charge of the statistics the other day. And we actually have more indicators coming out this morning at in less than an hour that could send markets off into another downward trend. So he really doesn't need a big tariff war with China at this stage. We're back to, as you say, a 90-day extension of the truce. And whether or not he looks tough in this, he's certainly compensating by putting troops on the streets of Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much indeed. David Charter, great to speak to you. David is the Times' assistant editor, speaking to us there from Washington.